Good morning, Diecast people. You know that song, Love the One You're With? The chorus goes, if you can't be with the one you love the one you're with. I was reminded of that song with this new policy I have of just buying whatever I think is interesting in the stores. All the good stuff around here is like slurped up immediately. Like there's people who really need money and they're buying it all so they can resell it, and more power to them. I mean, that's the American way. Like buy low, sell high. It's capitalism. It's you got to do that. And if Mattel likes it that way, not much we can do about it. But in the spirit of bottom feeding, I've adopted a couple, like, I mean, I don't like Maisto necessarily, which would be, I've considered it because they're always there and no one cares about them and they're not resellable. But I do like the Hot Wheels and Matchbox brand quite a bit. So what I've started to do is collect some things that no one really cares about, like X-Racers, Batmobiles, tune cars, which are usually available to some degree. So I got into collecting those. Well, I took things of a notch weirder. I've started collecting GT Hunters and GT Scorchers. The black GT Scorcher is kind of a hot car because of the Netflix series, but the rest of them not so much. And the GT Hunter is just another fantasy car that no one really cares about. It's very rarely in the main line, at least recently. It's usually a multi-pack exclusive or a neon speeder or a color shifter or something like that. So I have this box. And another change is that I'm starting to do this versus thing. So like if two castings share the same box, they have to be similar in some way, and sort of like which one is better, which one is faster, which one's cooler, whatever. So it's like versus, instead of just being a hyphenated box, it's versus. So this one is the GT Hunter versus GT Scorcher. Which one's faster? I don't know. They don't exist, so we won't know. But this is brand new. I just established this yesterday, so there's not much in it. And the reason I established it is because there was nothing on the pegs except for these two color shifters, a GT Hunter. Wait, is that it? Yeah, that's it. A color shifter GT Hunter and the color shifter GT Scorcher. And I haven't made them change colors yet. But there's 16 GT Hunters, surprisingly, and there's only 6 GT Scorchers because it's kind of new. But I would say that they're probably fairly matched. Maybe if I ever set my track up again, I'll see which one's literally faster in terms of like the Hot Wheels cars. But if you imagine them being real cars, which one would you say is faster? GT Scorcher versus GT Hunter. It's a GT Scorcher Hunter. Get it? So other show, did I mention that this is Sunday and it's show and tell? I'm not going to open anything new that you envy. I'm just going to show you some of the crap that I already own. And at the end, I'm going to show you a bunch of Frank Frazetta stuff because I got a lot of questions. I mentioned him and his paintings the other day and I got a few questions. So I'm going to give you an expose and what I still own of his work. But I did get a question from Josh, which was, hold on, let me read the actual question. So his question was, I have a request for next show and tell Sunday, if you're amenable. I noticed that most diecast cars are models from a small handful of countries, the US, the UK, Germany, France, Italy, Sweden, Japan, Australia, but occasionally things from elsewhere slip through. I'm not including models like the Brazilian Charger made in Brazil, but by a non-Brazilian company. Do you have an international miscellaneous section, as do I? Well, I don't. I just kind of put cars made by one company that's sold in only a specific country, like confusing stuff like that, in the closest match box. So I guess I'm just going to show you a couple of those things. So hold on. So speaking of Brazilian Dodge Chargers, I have 3 of those, but they're just here in general population with the rest of my Dodge Chargers. So no special international box. In this GM Cars box, I have a couple Opalas that were made by GM, but only sold in Brazil, I believe. So, in with my general GM car box, though. And also in this same box, I think these are a couple Holdens. Like, this is a Holden Monaro, and this is a Holden Tirana. But anyway, Holden's made by GM. Well, this was an actual Holden original, I believe, and I think the Monaro was like rebadged of something they sold in the States. So, two examples just in my GM box of cars not sold in the States that are just kind of in another box. And here in this Toyota box, there are a couple Toyotas that I just stuck in here that were never sold in the U.S. So a Soarer, the Altezza, no, Chaser. That's really, I never even heard of that until I saw that car. And then two Altezzas, which these have sort of equivalents, close matches in the U.S. market, but true JDM cars in terms of what they were called, because they never were sold here. And I think that's it. Some Celicas, some 2000 GTs. Nissan does that a lot. Like, they, probably more than any other brand, Nissan has a lot of models that were Japan only, or Japan plus maybe some other countries, but not the US. So those are all, again, still in the same box, either a Nissan box or in the Skyline box. I have several boxes of Skylines and Laurels, and those are just non-US cars completely. So they have dedicated boxes, I guess. That was kind of a sloppy way to answer your question, but in general, no, I don't have a miscellaneous international cars. I just sort of put them with the closest match. So on this second part, I'm going to show you all the Frank Frazetta stuff that I still own, and a couple tattoos that my daughter did for me. So I'm going to go handheld for that, so hold on to your breakfast. So as I was saying, Sunday, I had this weird little collection fascination with Frank Frazetta paintings, like this one, for instance. And obviously I can't afford the real painting, so what I was doing is collecting the painting on the book, the media, whatever, it could be record cover, magazine cover, book cover, that it first appeared on. So I have about 90% of them, I guess. Here's a lot of hardcovers, paperbacks, a lot of, like here's an example of a really old one. And then the Conan ones, well, this Cabin's World was a fairly recent one. Edgar Rice Burroughs, obviously, the whole Tarzan thing. That's a cool one. It's called The Bear. Got 2 copies of that. And I have a lot of the work that he did for Creepy, Eerie, and Vampirella. So, Creepy, Eerie. This painting was on both Creepy and Vampirella. Here's that Wolf Mother cover. This painting is called Sea Witch, but it appeared on this issue of Eerie first, and then Wolf Mother used it years later. And this was on an album cover. I can't remember. Maybe Molly Hatchet? I don't think it's Molly Hatchet. Or Nazareth. This was on the cover of a Nazareth album. And I have a pile of like miscellaneous stuff. Like he did this advertisement with a painting of Ringo Starr on the back of a Mad magazine. He did something for Animal Kingdom. I don't remember where those came from. But Rolling Stone, this is an interesting one. It was a quarterly report, like a stockholders report for Dow Chemical Corporation, but they hired Frank Frazetta to do an illustration in there, and I'm not going to open it up because your interest in this is probably mild at best. So I mentioned cards the other day. There was actually a set of Frank Frazetta art cards, and I only have one copy. I usually do the backs, but only the fronts. There's that painting again. There's that painting again. That's a pretty famous one, Conan. The Death Dealer, that was on the cover of that Molly Hatchet record. And that's on the cover of Pellicular. And I think I have both sets. Some illustrations. One of these illustrations I have a tattoo of, which I'll show you. I can't remember where it was. And that's all the Frazetta. And I even collected like heavy metal magazine cards at one point, because I collect heavy metal magazines too, or did at one point. It's kind of on hold. I'm not going to part with them, obviously, but yeah, that's the foundation of my whole aesthetic right there. And lastly, 2 tattoos on my right leg that my daughter inked. This is a Frazetta illustration. It was black and white originally. And on the other side is another Frazetta illustration of this primitive caveman dude. So, very happy with those. And that's all my Frazetta shit. Happy Sunday. Talk to you tomorrow.